All right. So to create a new company file, go to the file menu and up to create a new company. We're greeted with the QuickBooks setup window, right? And they basically ask you to answer some basic questions to get the setup started, right? So let's start the setup to create a brand new company file. Let's create a fictional business, and I want you guys to interact with me. So can somebody give me the name of a business for our business?
Any name?
Any name.
Okay, smart.
Smart. All right. All right. Let's give ours 2 hours because we're different from the one on the highway, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now, just so you know, a company like Smart, they would have QuickBooks to do their accounting, but the software that they would use for checking out your items, while it would be from the same company, it would be called QuickBooks as well, but it would be a specialized version called Point of Sale, right? Where it would you would essentially check items of the inventory. But what we're using is actually a different QuickBooks software. It's QuickBooks Desktop Accounting, which is where you can basically manage a company's accounts. All right. The Point of Sale is more optimized for managing inventory. Okay. So just to make that distinction here. So SMART, our industry is what? Retail. Let's go retail shop, right? Business type. So it is going to be a corporation. Let's make it into a corporation for now, right? So it's a corporation and we're all shareholders in it. No employee identification number. So the items with the red asterisks, as I'm sure you know, are required. The rest are optional. So the only other thing we're gonna put in here, we're gonna put in country. My version of QuickBooks doesn't have Dominican on the list, so we're gonna put in US, all right? And create company. Should probably just leave the country as other. Now, notice we left out quite a bit of information, address information, phone information. In the event you're starting up your company, you may not have everything on hand, right? But you can always edit that information once you have the company file created and within QuickBooks. So just give it a minute, let the file get created, and then I'll show you the process to do that. All right. So at this point, we've created the company file, and the company file really is it's a database file, but it's a special database file. It's a QuickBooks file. It's a .qbb, QBW, I believe. We'll look at the file types afterwards, right? And it's saved somewhere on your drive. However, the location is not always apparent, and I'll show you how we would find that file in the event you need to copy it, and how we'd make a backup later on. All right. Any questions so far?
Good so far.
All right, cool. So where we go to an add here, keep everything in one place with QuickBooks Desktop. Just an advertisement for what you can do with QuickBooks. So let's start working. And this is the QuickBooks home dashboard, right? And for the most part, if you're unsure of what to do within QuickBooks, this is the simplified version, right? You really just need to follow the arrows, yeah? So you have a number of areas that QuickBooks focuses on. Vendors up here. And what do you typically need to do with vendors? Vendors are going to bill you for items that you purchase, right? Such as electricity from Domlec, or water from the Wasco, or even goods and items from your wholesalers, right? So you would want to enter bills from your vendors here, and you would want to, after you enter your bills, pay your bills. So QuickBooks keeps a record of everything. So Any bills from vendors are entered here. We'll go through the process later on, and you pay as the next step. All right. Second area QuickBooks focuses on is customers. And what is the order of the process for customers, right? You start with perhaps an estimate. The customer may not require an estimate, right? But they may. So if they ask for an estimate, you want to create an estimate for them. And that would essentially give them a cost for goods or services that they can purchase at a later date. An invoice, everybody know what's an invoice? When you use an invoice? Can anybody tell me the difference between an invoice and a receipt, a sales receipt?
So an invoice is something you would get to know the price of something before you come and buy it. And a receipt is something you would get after you buy the whatever you buy, I think.
You close, but you just explain estimate and the receipt for me, not invoice.
Okay.
So an invoice is something that you would give a client after they receive services and you expect them to pay later. All right. So let's say you go to SMAT and you purchase a case of beer, for instance, right? And you have an account with them. So you expect to pay for it month end, right? They would then give you an invoice telling you the cost of the crate of beer, and it shows you how much your account is owed, and then you can pay that invoice off at a later date. All right. So the difference between an invoice and a receipt is really when you receive the payment. For an invoice, you do the work first and you receive the payments after. So notice you would create the invoice first and then receive the payment. But for a receipt, you typically get cash at the time of either of the purchase, whether you provide a service or you sell in a good, right? And then you give the person a receipt saying that you received the payment. So for a receipt, you would receive the payment first and give the payee, whoever's paying you, a receipt. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Right. So the home screen of QuickBooks actually makes it really easy for you to understand the order of business and what comes next. All right. And of course, after you receive your payments, which is the reason for invoices or receipts, right? You want to record your deposits or say that you put the money in your bank account so that you can direct it into other places, such as paying bills, right? And paying employees. All right. Everybody good with that so far? Any questions? All right. So this is actually the home screen of QuickBooks. As I mentioned, we're going to just do a few activities in the account that we just created. This is for SMAT with 2 R's. And then we're going to jump into a sample company that has actual data to do some more advanced work. All right. But before we get any further, there's a little bit more setup that we may have to do on our company file. For one, you notice that the third area that the QuickBooks focuses on is employees, right? Basically your payroll, but payroll is not turned on. You have an easy option to turn it on here, right? You can just press the button, but usually after you configure a new company file, you're usually not done. You want to go to edit and go to preferences, right? And there you can configure preferences for your company, right? So let's look at company preferences. For instance, you can use account numbers, right? On the bills, you can set when bills are due. So currently bills are due 10 days after receipt. Is that the norm? Typically, I think it is, but you could configure those settings, right? Configure your checking account, your desktop view. What we're interested in is payroll and employees here, right? You want to activate full payroll. And then you go through and customize the preferences for your business, all right? If you use multiple currencies, for instance, if you accept If you have an online store and you accept US payments, for instance, online, but you accept EC payments in store, then you can configure that there. So the company file would allow you to put in options for multiple currencies. But we're not going to go through the preferences right now, right? We're going to go through usage of the software. So we're going to turn on payroll easy way. Actually, no, that is, sorry. We'll go through that there afterwards. Let's go to that. Sorry. All right. Okay, so we looked at vendors, basically customers and employees, overview so far. The next thing QuickBooks focuses on is, of course, your company, right? And each of the major areas here, vendors, customers, employees, you realize they have their own menu up here. So all of the items you can access here, such as create invoices, create sales receipt, receive payments, right? You can actually do them from your menu. However, if this screen ever gets lost, right, you can always just go click home from here to get back to your home screen.
So quick question.
Yeah.
You have to do all that before you start entering data, right? Just like Accent.
You have to do all of that before you start entering data, yes. But the thing is, typically, if you're gonna start working for a company, that is already taken care of. And that's not going to be the person that's entering the data job, more than likely. That's really the job of the accountant. So the accountant is going to be the one that's going to create the company file, create the chart of account, put in the items and services and so on. And the receptionist or the person doing the daily bookkeeping is going to be entering the bills, paying the bills, creating invoices, estimates, receiving payments, creating sales receipts, and recording deposits. So it's really two different jobs, but I'm showing you how the software works on a whole. So what we're doing here would actually be creating a brand new company file for a brand new company before we enter any data. All right.
Okay.
So actually the next
I
step.
also have a question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Where you have estimates would be like for what section?
Estimate is, let's say you want to purchase, I don't know why a case of beer, you not say SMAT, so a case of beer on my mind, right?
Okay.
So you want to purchase a case of beer from SMAT, but you're looking for the best price on a case of beer. So you know your options are SMAT, or what's the other option? Where else would you buy beer? Fresh Market. All right.
Yes.
You could call SMAT and ask them for an estimate on a case of beer. And then you could call Fresh Market, ask them for an estimate on the same item. You would receive two estimates. An estimate would basically tell you how much they're going to charge you for the item, right? And then you can then compare them and say, well, SMAT a little bit cheaper, so I'll go with them. Or Fresh Market a little bit more expensive, but they're giving you some form of value for the money, so you might opt to go with them. All right, at least you can see the difference. So an estimate is basically how much the good, a prediction of how much the good is going to cost the client or the customer before they actually purchase it. Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other questions before we continue?
I seen statement charges.
Statement charges. Right. Accumulate charges that will be included on the billing statement. Basically, you have customers you bill different ways. For instance, you may have a customer that you don't send an invoice for everything, but you go to them periodically and you send them a bill at the end of the month, right?
Okay.
So you will want to add statement charges for every time you create something that is billable. And then at the end of the month or at the end of the period, whatever billing period you guys agree on, you would send them a statement that would include all of the statement charges so they would know what they pay, what they have to pay you for essentially over a period of time. Right. So whereas an invoice and a sales receipt basically represent a one-time payment, right? For goods or services, a statement is something that like an ongoing thing that you have with a client. Okay.
Yes, thanks.
All right. We all good with the questions, huh? Any other questions on the home screen so far? On vendors, customers, employees? All right. Okay. Before we continue, let's assume that we had made some errors entering information in the company, or not errors, but let's say that our company is now 2 days old, but we signed up for a phone number with Cable and Wireless yesterday, right? So we want to edit the company information, right? To show the, well, to reflect the new data. We can go to the company menu here and go to my company. There's also a shortcut right here, but I'm doing it from the menu, right? You see the company information here. That's smart. We're going to edit that information. Sorry, I have 2 screens and sometimes things end up on the other side. So, all right. So if we up to edit the company information, we get a similar screen like what we had to put in the company information in the first place, right? Let's set our country as other because we don't want to be associated with the US for US taxes. And let's say our telephone number is 767 123 4567. All right. Our email is smart, SMART @gmail.com. Right. And our website is smart.com. I just put it in, no need to put in the whole thing, right? But we know, well, let's put it in properly because we're supposed to know that a website has a proper URL and the URL starts from the protocol, right? So http://www.smart.com. All right. We can put in any other information, all right? We can put our address here. Let's leave address out for now. Let's just say Rosa. All right. We can put in any other legal information, legal address, legal country, and any other information such as your social security, tax identification number, and so on. For now, we don't really need all of that, right? So we're just going to leave it as it is and say, okay. And that is how, do you want to go back and update? No. All right, and notice the information here is updated. That is how we would update our company information. That is relevant because that shows up on your reports, such as your invoices, your receipts, your estimates, and so on. All right. Of course, you can configure it to not show, but yeah. So let's close the My Company window. All right. And let's look at how we customize our company. First thing we look at is the chart of accounts. Anybody can tell me what the chart of accounts represent for any company? Anybody did accounts in school or anything like that?
So I think it will represent the financial transaction of the company.
Well, the chart of account shows all of the accounts within the company, not necessarily transactions, right? But it shows all of the potential accounts. So for instance, your fixed assets. So hold on, if I create a new, right? You can create accounts of different types, right? You have income accounts, you have expense accounts, you have assets accounts, you have liability accounts, right? You have bank accounts and so on. So all of the accounts relating to your business would be represented in the chart of account, right? So all of your money would need to go into an account, right? It would need to come into an account, first of all, deposit into an account in order to categorize your, well, every aspect of your business, right? Equity, expense, liabilities. So again, in terms of the chart of accounts, that would require in-depth, intimate knowledge about the business. And usually that is where an accountant would come in to let you know exactly what is required for your specific business type. So most times, unless you're starting a business from scratch, you're not going to be required to create the chart of accounts. All right. But all of your payments will be categorized in there. We'll look at the chart of accounts a little more later on. The other thing you want to record for your business are the items and services that the business sells, right? So if it's a service-based business, you're going to have services, right, that you sell or services that you provide, right? And if you retail business like us, you're going to provide products as well, so you're going to have inventory. All right. Notice we don't have the option for inventory there because I didn't configure the company file properly, but we're going to look at a sample file for doing some transactions. All right, we're just looking at the interface right now. So all of your products that you sell and the services that you provide would need to be entered into your item list, right? The item and services list. You can also enter it from the list menu here. You have the chart of accounts, you have your item list. All right. Now, this chart of accounts here was actually created by default when you created the company account. And when you select the type of business that you have, the QuickBooks will automatically select default, will create default accounts based on what is typically accepted in your industry. All right. Of course, that would still be edited and fine-tuned with your accountant, which is why we're not going further in. And then we have banking, of course, which is an important aspect of business, where we can record deposits and write checks to pay bills, pay our employees, and so on. All right. So that is the overall interface of QuickBooks. Any questions on that? Anything is not too clear? Any questions you need to ask in terms of how we would perform a certain transaction, how we would do anything?
So like what you were explaining earlier on, it would show everything your company is spending and things like that.
Yes. So we also, if you wanted to show, yeah, that's good. I should have gone for that. So typically when you're doing bookkeeping, you have two main reports that you're concerned with. All right. You're concerned with your profit and loss, right? And your balance sheet. Really, actually, your profit and loss shows your income and your expenses, right? So it shows your net income. And of course, we want to have more income than expenses so we can make profit. But that doesn't show anything because it's a brand new company file. So notice our net income is 0, right? When we look at the sample file, we will see how that actually works. But we also have a balance sheet. And balance sheet shows you your assets, your liabilities, and equity. And again, because that is a brand new company file with no information entered, everything is at 0 right now. Okay. You can also show a range of other reports, right? For instance, let's say you've been in business for a while and you want to find out how much money you have to pay to your vendors. In other words, how much money are you owed? You could go to vendors and payables, and you could go to vendor balance summary. And again, it's blank, but it would show you a summary of your vendors and how much you owe them. All right. If you wanted to see, for instance, how much money that you're owed, right? You could go to customers and receivables, and you could go to customer balance summary, right? And it would show you a list of customers and a summary of the balances, so how much money that you owed. And there are a number of other reports that you could pull up for a number of different purposes. We won't be able to go through all of them in detail, but they're pretty straightforward reports for things like your employee contact lists, payroll detail, how much money you spend on payroll monthly, job profitability, so you can categorize your income by jobs, right? And look at job profitability or item profitability. You can look at the profitability of individual items within your item list. All right. So you have a number of reports that you can create within QuickBooks, so you can see different aspects of your business, right? or overviews of different areas of your business. See, we have a couple chats there. Nigel asks, what is meant by write checks?
White.
White checks?
Yes.
Where you seen white checks? You mean write checks? Yeah,
White.
it says write, W-R-I-T-E, write checks. It looking like white to you? Anyway, write checks is basically, let me just again, we don't have a bank account to write a check, so we have to create a lot of different accounts for the business in order for us to look at it fluidly, which is why oh, your keyboard have an issue. All right. Which is why we're gonna just jump into a sample company when we come in. We have just about 2 minutes left before we go on a quick break. All right. Then we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and when we come back in, we're going to look at the sample company with all of the bank accounts and everything set up. And I will show you how we write checks, among other things. All right. Anybody have any questions up to this point? So far we've looked at the overall interface of QuickBooks, how we would create a new company file starting from scratch, right? And the main areas that QuickBooks focuses on: vendors, customers, employees, company, and banking, right? And at this point, essentially, we would now be entering the accounts for our business, our bank accounts, our checking accounts, and all of the items and services that our business provides. And well, and a list of the inventory, how much stock we have. Everybody good up to that point, right? Yes? Yes, I'm going to assume that silence is yes. Okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. So let's take a quick break here. Again, it's convenient because based on our occupational health and safety standards, we should take a break from looking at the screen every 30 minutes, right? So we're gonna take a quick break. I'm gonna send you guys back the link in about 5 minutes. So at 2:10, look out for it. All right, and then we're gonna come back in and look at some sample data. Cool?
Cool.
All right, guys, see you in a bit. Drink some water and come prepared to ask me questions and interact, okay? Rosie, I barely hear you for the day. You okay? All right. See you guys in 5 minutes.